All right, so what we're going to do tonight, in the next 3 hours.
3 hours? We heard that.
No, over the next about 35 minutes, we're going to do some balance stuff, okay? Really, why are you here? Why do you want to learn about balance?
So I don't fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So slips and
Quicker
falls are a big concern,
response,
okay?
quicker reflexes.
And you know, I think that's probably the last thing you should be concerned with, because the first and foremost thing is the fact that lack of balance control initially starts as joint dysfunction. And we'll talk a lot about that tonight, okay? So the presentation objective is to understand the basic neurology of the balance control and how devastating the lack of balance can truly be. If you ever had a person that has vertigo or something of that nature, that they just can't tell where they are in space, it can be really tough. They don't want to do anything because of the significance of that lack of control.
Yeah.
So the basics of neurology are this. Basically, there's 24 removable bones, okay? The brain's on top, obviously. The spinal cord's inside. The nerves exit at each level. The discs are between the vertebrae, and there's multiple joints at each level. There's receptors, and that's the key. Of all of these things, the most important thing is the receptors. And I want you to think of the receptors of the body as like cat's whiskers, okay? If you've ever cut a cat's whiskers off, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
It's a bad thing, okay? And we'll talk more about that in just a bit, okay? So where do the nerves actually come from? Well, obviously the nerves come out of the neck, supply the arms. The nerves come out of the lower back, supply the legs. And then the mid-back supplies all the organs and also the sensory portions of the mid-back as well. So there's a ton of nerves that we're going to talk about, and all of these nerves obviously carry that proprioception, or the term that we'll use is proprioception, or the receptors feeding to the cerebellum. It's going to tell you where you are in space, okay? And we'll actually do a little fun game with that. So where do the nerves actually go? Obviously, to every cell, tissue, muscle, and organ of the body. It's an important component of why it's important to keep your nervous system healthy. So how do you tell where you are in space, okay? If every one of you would pick your finger up like this, and then go like this, okay? If you didn't look at it, could you tell where you are in space with that finger? What if I had you close your eyes and I actually moved it that way? Could you tell?
Sort of.
You should be able to, okay? But why is that?
Because you can feel it.
Yeah, but what are you feeling it with?
The brain, apparently.
Nerves.
With
Your
receptors.
nerves in your
Receptors.
Those
finger.
receptors. The receptors are telling you where you are in space all the time. Does it make sense that if the receptors are not working properly, you're not going to know where you are in space and potentially could slip and fall? Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. So what positions your finger in is all those receptors telling you exactly where you are. So the proprioceptors are just like the cat's whiskers. If you cut them off, the cat will now think it can get into that little tiny hole and get stuck, right? Although it's a really funny thing to do if you live on a farm like I did growing up, right? You know, you do that to the cats and see what happens. No, I would never do that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so long and short of it, it's all about these cat's whiskers. Well, could we potentially lose some of those receptors, or maybe some of those receptors kind of get very, very quiet on us? They do. We don't actually lose receptors. They don't actually die off. They just become dormant. And that's what we want to wake up. Okay, we want to wake those receptors up. Okay, so the key to health in terms of balance control is really proprioception. So we'll talk about proprioceptors, and we'll also talk about proprioception, the act of feeling where you are in space. Okay. So how important is balance control? When you walk, do you use balance control?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people will say no, but watch, when I go like this, when I'm in mid stance, when I'm going over towards heel strike, am I totally balancing? Yeah. Now, nobody's going like this. You know, remember that, the $60 million man? Or whatever it was?
Yeah.
The $6 million man. Well, now it's today's inflation. So we got this guy going, right? But it's pretty neat when you look at it, but that's the whole gait cycle. But on a daily basis, you're using balance control all the time. And there's certain muscles that have to hold you in a position to allow you to accommodate that particular task of walking, okay? So 90% of hip fractures are due to falls. And there's always the argument, what happened first? Did the bone break, or did you fall and then break the bone? Who cares? You broke the bone, right? Who cares at that point? The bottom line is you're still laying in a bed with a fracture. By the year 2050, there'll be an estimated